Now let's return to our main story this morning. Towns and cities in England and Northern Ireland saw clashes between anti-immigration demonstrators and counter-protesters yesterday, with police officers attacked and a number of arrests being made. The string of violent incidents over the past few days began on Tuesday in Southport after 3 young girls were killed in a knife attack. Let's talk now to Tiffany Lynch, who's from the Police Federation. Tiffany, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us. What are we seeing across the country right now? How would you characterise these demonstrations and protests?
Good morning, Ben. Yes, what we're seeing over our TV screens and listening to the radio is an abhorrent, senseless act of violence towards our police officers, towards the public buildings that are there to serve the community. This is a small, mindless minority, and it doesn't represent the communities of Great Britain. It's absolutely abhorrent what is happening out there on the streets at the moment.
How challenging a week has it been for police officers?
Incredibly. This is unprecedented. We have had riots and clashes of this nature, but have been pocketed in particular areas of the country. We're now seeing it flooding across major cities and towns. In terms of the capability, policing capability, we're seeing officers that are being pulled from day-to-day policing, where they're in neighbourhoods, where they're on response, to actually perform with their training and their professionalism to go out there and essentially protect our communities. But while that's happening, the communities that are out there that are having incidents against them, victims of crime, unfortunately, their crimes are not being investigated. We're not going to be able to attend all of the incidents that are coming in on the 999s because we're having to direct the priorities of what's happening on the streets.
And given what we're seeing, and it strikes me that the motives change, the way that these protests form each time are different. So how difficult is it then for the police to plan and maintain law and order, given the changing nature of these protests?
Incredibly difficult. Obviously, we have our intelligence officers out there, and thankfully people are calling in. What we also have is the disinformation across social media, which obviously needs to be addressed and addressed quickly. What we're having to do is mobilise very, very quickly on that intelligence. We saw it at the very start of this week, where the tragic, horrific killing of 3 young children and the injured children and members of the public, where that day of reflection and remembrance quickly turned into horrific violence, acts of violence, and towards the police officers that are there to protect everybody. It's totally senseless.
We know a lot of officers have been called in to bolster the support that they're able to give. We are also, though, warned that there may be a repeat of this. There may be further protests in the days to come. How long can the police keep up this level of policing?
We will continue keeping up this level of policing for as long as it takes. We need it to stop, and we need it to stop immediately. And that's easy to say. But we will mobilise whenever we need. We're 24/7, 365 days of the year. But on that understanding, we haven't got an infinite number of police officers. These police officers are working back-to-back shifts, extended hours, and their morale and their well-being is being affected. So we need the community, we need the public to get behind the police, to get behind the call for this to stop, so that we can actually get back to doing the important day-to-day policing and supporting our victims of crime out there.
The Prime Minister said there's no excuse for violence of any kind. He says that the government backs the police to take all the necessary action to keep our streets safe. The Home Secretary echoing those lines, saying criminal violence and disorder has no place on Britain's streets. But what would you want to see from the government? What can they provide you?
Those statements are welcomed, and it's what is needed. We need the government to back our police officers and our police service in doing what we do. For this particular event and these incidents, that's all well and good. But from a long-term perspective, we now need government to acknowledge and understand that policing cannot be forgotten. We need long-term funding, we need sustainable funding, and we need our officers to have that recognition and that compensation for the risk that they actually take. We're seeing numerous officers that are getting injured in these clashes alone. On average, we have 140 officers that are injured every week. The risks that they take are not day-to-day risks, and government need to get behind the police service.
OK, Tiffany Lynch at the Police Federation. Good to have you with us. Thank you.